On February 13th, we commemorate Venerable Martinian of Caesarea in Palestine, Venerable Stephen in monasticism Simeon, the Myrrhgusher and Prince of Serbia, Saint Zoe, Saint Photina, Saint Eulogius, Archbishop of Alexandria, Saint Seraphima, Saint George, Archbishop of Mogilev and Belarus. Saint Martinian went to live in the wilderness at the age of 18, not far from the city of Caesarea in Palestine. For 25 years, he devoted himself to ascetic deeds in silence, and he was granted the gift of healing illnesses and casting out demons. However, the enemy of the race of man would not stop bothering the hermit with various temptations. Once, a profligate woman made a wager with some dissolute people that she could seduce Saint Martinian, the fame of whose virtuous life had spread throughout all the city. She came to him one night, pretending that she had lost her way in the storm and asking for shelter. The saint let her enter, unable to turn her away in such a storm. He went into his room and locked the door. The wicked guest changed into beautiful clothes and began to tempt the ascetic. When morning came, Saint Martinian came out to send the woman away. Though he was tempted by the woman's beauty, he was determined not to fall into sin. Lighting a fire, he stepped into it, saying, "You want me to burn with temptation and want to lead me into the fires of hell. I will not let you. Instead, I will burn for my virginity and save my soul." The woman came to see how evil she was. She repented and asked the saint to guide her onto the way of salvation. He told her to go to Bethlehem, to St. Paula, commemorated on January 26th. There, she lived as a nun for 12 years in strict asceticism until her blessed end. The woman's name was Zoe. St. Martinian went to an uninhabited rocky island and lived on it under the open sky for several years. Nourished by the provisions brought by a certain sailor from time to time, in return the monk wove baskets for him. Once a powerful storm wrecked the ship, and a woman named Photina floated on pieces of the wreckage to the island of St. Martinian. St. Martinian helped her to survive the island. "Remain here," he told her, "for here is bread and water, and in 2 months a boat will come." Then he jumped into the sea and swam off. 2 dolphins carried him to dry land. Thereafter, St. Martinian led the life of a wanderer. Later, he came to Athens and fell ill. Sensing the approach of death, he went into church and lay upon the floor. God revealed to the bishop of Athens who St. Martinian was, and the bishop buried his body with honor. This occurred around the year 422. Saint Stephen the Myrrhgusher, king of Serbia, Stephen Nemanja, was the great Zufan of Serbia, and lived during the 12th century. The saint toiled much for his fatherland. He united a large portion of the Serbian lands and strove for the political independence of his country from the Byzantine Empire. In his zeal for the Orthodox Church, he defended his nation against heresy and false teaching. At the age of 80, Stephen went to Mount Athos, where his son Saint Sava, commemorated on January 12th, was glorified by the holiness of his life. Together, they restored the desolate Hillander monastery, to which monks from various lands began to gather. Saint Simeon was a great ascetic and wise guide for the monks. He died on February 13th in the year 1200. His relics began to exude myrrh. Saint Sava transported his father's relics back to Serbia and placed them in the church of the Most Holy Theotokos at the river Studenica. Saint Simeon had richly adorned this church while he was still ruler of Serbia. Saint Zoe and Saint Photina are commemorated on the same day as Saint Martinian, Saint Zoe having spent the remainder of her life in strict asceticism. Saint Photina remained on the island where she spent 6 years in solitude, and then she gave up her soul to God. Everything about her death was reported by that same sailor who brought her food, just as he had done previously for Saint Martinian. The sailor brought the body of Saint Photina to Palestinian Caesarea, where it was solemnly buried by the bishop and clergy. Saint Eulogius, Patriarch of Alexandria, was one of the enlightened hierarchs of the 6th century. At first he was igumen of the monastery of the Mother of God in Antioch, and then, in 579, he was chosen as Patriarch of Alexandria, where he served for 27 years. Throughout his life, the saint struggled vigorously against heresies. He was also a friend of St. Gregory the Eulogius, commemorated on March 12th. Some of their correspondence has been preserved. St. Eulogius died in 607 or 608. St. Photius quotes from his writings which reveal an orthodox theology of the two natures of our Lord Jesus Christ. Only one of his sermons for Palm Sunday has survived in complete form. Saint Seraphima Euthymia Euthymova Myrrhgusher in the world was born on September 14, 1806, in the village of Ningvo Lomov in the Diocese of Ryazan, and lived an ascetical life at a monastery in Sezhnevo in Russia. She departed to the Lord in the year 1877. St. George, in the world Gregory Yosevich Koniski, was born into a prominent family on November 20, 1717, in the town of Nezin. He studied at the Kiev Theological Academy and became a monk in the Kiev Caves Lavra. Later, he served as Archbishop of Mogilev, Belarus, and reposed peacefully in the year 1795.